when a city is destroyed and then everyone spreads out. You just have to remember, oh, okay, I'm putting people here. Now you take those people, but you have a technology that you can take less people and you can return some people to the thing. It's a little bit that kind of thinkingness.
You know, I was just going to do this whole review of Pest, and I had filmed the video sitting in the little game area in our dining room where I usually do my videos, although I haven't done a lot of videos lately. And then all of a sudden, we played it one more time that evening, and there were some more thoughts that I had on the game. Let me start off by saying that I really think it's a good game. It's very unique. It's one of the most interesting games that I've played in the last 4 months or so. I'm super glad that I got the whole deluxe set with the figures and the city in the middle of the board. You'll see the pictures in a moment. So I'm going to start off right about saying that I'm a huge positive of the game. So any negatives that you hear me say during the main part of the interview, which was, by the way, I shaved after doing the first part of the interview, so it'll look like someone else, my doppelganger, did the other part of the interview, or the other part of the review, I should say. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Justin from Justin and Max Games. It's been a while. These videos take a while to put together, and as time goes on in life, you have less and less time to do everything you want to do. But I wanted to do a two-player only review of the game Pest, and which is a game set in sort of a fantasy world with the plague, so using sort of medieval theme, but also in a fantasy world. Why am I doing the video? Because I think that this is a really unique game. And at 2 players always, because this game plays up to 5, it's a little bit of a table hog, and the whole table is taken up with our 2-player game. Oh, of course, you know, you could probably put the setup cards somewhere else, but for the most part, there's a lot of space that you need. And over here, we have all of the eras, because the game takes place over 3 eras and 6 years, I suppose, or 6 time periods. And at the end of every era, you're going to score something that you're trying to accomplish on the map. And I keep on having to ask, because I sit over there, and my wife, Erica, sits over there. So sometimes I have to ask her, what does the cards say? And you're trying to accomplish things both during an era and at the end of the era. You see how well you did with another thing. The game's complexity level is moderate. I don't think it's too difficult to learn how to play, although there are a lot of little edge rules that you need to kind of remember, and some bonuses that you have to consider how to time things out exactly right. A lot of people are talking about the way that the player board, I'll just grab one here. This was the end of our game yesterday. The player board has action selection spaces, and wherever you put your person, you get to do the intersection between the 2 things. I've seen that kind of thing in games before, and although I think it's an interesting aspect of the game, it's not the most revolutionary thing. And you have buildings that you're building, and then you have to assign people that you heal, that you pick up on the map, to the building so that they can produce things, so that you could use those things for future additions to the city. And then you're trying to heal people from your quarantine to your laboratory, I think it's called, to be able to produce these flasks. And the flasks will give you the ability to either purchase technology cards or enhance some of your actions, which should always be reminded. That's a big thing, is to enhance an action before you do it, because the top 3 actions of the intersection are your main sort of what you're really trying to do: move around the map and then build things and produce things. The technology cards. So here's my thoughts on the technology cards. I saw some comments saying that they're a little bit maybe unbalanced. At 2 players, I didn't see any imbalances between some of the cards. The costs of the cards are always minimal. It's either 1 or 2 flasks, and you can get a couple of points at the end of the game. There is this little portion of it where they can only go in a certain slot, some of the cards, so you have to think about which slot. I'm not sure why that's really in the game necessarily. It seems maybe one thing kind of strange to think about is where you're going to put your card, especially if you don't know what you're going to do later on in the game and what cards are going to come up. And but that's a minor issue. The cards are cool. I love the technology cards. That to me is the real interest in the game for me, is how you're going to choose the technologies early in the game to be able to give yourself direction that coincides with the accomplishments that you're trying to make every year of every era, so that you could move up on this influence track, which gets you some additional bonuses. They all kind of work really nicely, and if you really got to push this game, it's okay to use every single resource on an action to just draw everything out, to be able to build your couple things, or to go the places that you need to do, or to heal just the right amount of people, and I like all of that. We have the upgraded pack, so I painted all the little doctors that go around healing people, if we ever get to play it at 5. And we have the upgraded building, which I painted. And people complained that it didn't fit together all that right. I used some super glue, and it fits fine. I mean, there are a couple of spaces, but it's not a big deal. And I think it really adds a lot to the game. Although I usually don't pull these pieces in and out, because you can make the towers and so forth during the game. That seems a little bit of a messiness to us, so we use the original parts, and then just as you build them, you just kind of take them so you know what you've built. This little item is not in the game. This is from Canvas. I think I got this from the game Canvas, where you can display your artwork. The reason is that the capital city, every game has a different card. And this is really where I'm going to get maybe critical of the game, but I think with the idea of possible expansion in the future, it's hard to see what the card offers laying flat from anywhere, so I put it up on this little easel from Canvas. I should know, I teach the arts at my college, but who knows? Words escape me all the time. Anyway, so one of the actions that you can do is assign people that you have healed to buildings that you've created, or to put them into the capital city. Now, this is the only place that I think that the game feels lackluster. And that to me is the issue. There's this beautiful capital city in the middle, and there's this card, and you can get, depending on how many people are playing, there are these tokens, so you can get a single bonus, like a single resource, which is valuable, or a point, or some influence, by putting one or more people into the capital city. And there are some technologies that give you even further benefits with going into the capital city. I'm not holding up one that does that, but you get the idea. One of them is called tuition, where sending people to the capital city will get you additional influence. So this is the lackluster part of the game. It only happens 3 times during the game, at the end of each of the eras, when you score the capital city. And it's your usual, whoever has done the best gets a big reward, and second best, and so forth. And it's slightly different in the 2-player variants that's in the rules, which I definitely suggest using. To me, though, the rewards are so minimal for accomplishing this, that, I mean, we've only played the game a few times, and I've enjoyed every time that we've played it, don't get me wrong. But I just feel like this is underwhelming to me. I assign all my people, which I'm going to lose at the end of, unless I actually win it, then I can save one person. But I'm thinking, in an expansion, just as a thought, maybe at the end of an era, when the capital city scores, whoever gets, maybe there's better rewards for second and third place. And then first place, instead of getting a couple of points and maybe, a couple items, which seem very minimal in terms of the gameplay, you get rewarded by the capital city for sending all your people there. And now you take the card and tuck it under your player board. something like that. And now you get you have a one-time ability that no one else has, or something like that. I really see this as a lost opportunity to make the game really twist and turn. And maybe in the last era, whoever wins that card, there's an end game scoring that no one else can get. Maybe you get 1 point for every one of your, or a couple of points for something that you've accomplished during the game, so that there's a meaning why there's different things that occur every round and you get cards. That's a thought. Because it just seems a little bit underwhelming. Building the buildings in the capital city are interesting because you can use different resources than you normally build your regular buildings, which are only wood and stone. You could also additionally use bread that you use to pick up people on the board to be able to build some of these interesting buildings that go into the capital city. They get you a bunch of points. They also get you high up on the influence track. But that's all they do. I don't know, maybe if there was something else that they would do, it might have enhanced the game a little bit to me. We played it once. We're going to play it again tonight with the advanced rules, which replaces the resources that are normally produced on the map with some random resources, depending on if it's a city or if it's a village or if it's a town that it's being built on. So you have that. And I found that there was a mistake in the rule book for the 2-player numbers, but that's not a big deal. So what are my feelings about the game overall? I love the gameplay. I really do. I really enjoy the gameplay. I think it's excellent. I think the technology, to me, is really what twists and turns the game, makes it unique every time that you're playing it. The objectives that you have to do and the order of the objectives are interesting as well. I think the aid cards, whoever has the most influence gets a little bit more aid. The aid seems so very minimal in the game. I wasn't really... everyone gets something, basically, or nothing. The aid seems just like a little bit of nothing. I like the fact that there's random things that can come out in the game, depending on where the pest is every round. There's some, it's just a little bit of like trying to find where they are, then you're dropping people areas, and we definitely use up a lot of people in the 2-player game, and I know they have these tokens so that you could have 3s. And what happens when a city is destroyed and then everyone spreads out? You just have to remember, oh, okay, I'm putting people here. Now you take those people, but you have a technology that you can take less people and you can return some people to the thing. It's a little bit that kind of thinkingness. Plus you have this thing called a containment camp, which you could drop off places to move on to. To understand the nuances of the containment camp are important. Which brings me to my 2 major criticisms of the game. One, the rulebook all makes sense. I wish there were more illustrations. I wish it was maybe 2 or 3 pages longer to give you illustrations that are large. The illustrations are kind of small. They give you like a one-time kind of idea. Also really make some things that are really important in the book, emphasize some things that I thought could be just a little bit better here. There is an explanation of all the technologies in the back of the book, which are good. But then it gets down to the most critical part of the game, which is I love the look of the game, and especially here you see at the ends with the colors of the buildings that arise. The board is so messy. Artistically, it's interesting, and I could see it out of a fantasy book or a fantasy, graphic novel. But I'm used to looking at it now, and I know where things go. But the fact that, you have these cities that are next to the capital city that are adjacent to other cities that are adjacent to the capital city, and except for one city which is not, you kind of have to remember, oh, if I want to go from here to here, that's one move. But if I want to go here to here, I have to do something else. The roads are twisty and turny, and you have these names, these made-up silly names for all of the different cities that they're not in the game. There's no reason for them to be there at all. I guess it gives a little flavor to it, but with so much iconography on the board, and I could add 5 players, all the different colors, and the people being on the roads versus where they could, otherwise be at the cities. it could get quite harrowing. And in fact, my wife a couple of times has made mistakes on her plan because she thought a road didn't lead to something, it led to something else because the road went underneath a placard of a name of a different city that you don't go to, and the placard doesn't need to be there. Um, eh, that it's a little that's a little distraction for me. I figured it out and I could see it, but it's still a little bit. It's like this one other layer. If you're playing a game, even though it does involve you in it, the darkness of it and all, I want to be able to make clear decisions and a clear strategy. And when I'm looking at the map, I'm constantly having to remember, wait a minute, that's not a road. That's just a water line just to make the game look cool. Oh, that road leads there, but it goes underneath this thing. Because there's four different road colors. There's blue, red, and I guess kind of white inside a black marker, and they have this horseshoe shape. So those are roads, but there's also brown roads, and the brown roads you can traverse, but you can never use them. The pests will never come there because people just don't arise there. So that's really, I mean, it looks really nice, but it kind of detracts a little bit from the gameplay. I like the game a lot. It's a unique feeling. There's no other game that I really have that plays like this. And I should mention that Pest is the third game this year that we're playing that has this theme of plague or healing and moving around a map. Probably one of the more famous games or recent famous game is Messina 1347 by a famous designer. And this is a real Euro game. And I like the game a lot. My wife didn't connect with it as much, the whole arc of when you could return people that are healed to the cities that they came from. So she wasn't crazy about it. I did like it. There was also another game called Septima, which is about witches and healing people and getting the right ingredients to heal people. There was a lot of conversation in the game, and ultimately our group just didn't connect with that one. So then comes Pest, which also has healing people and, putting them to work or returning them to the home city. And this one I think I like the best out of the three. So where am I on the game for 2 players? I think I'm at an even 8. I was vacillating. Is this a 7.5? Ooh, the only thing that draws me down is sometimes the artwork on the board for the moving around would draw me down a little bit. What boosts me up? Original gameplay, cool technologies that if you work them together, wow, you could do things that no one else can do. You could just push the game a little bit more than anyone else in a certain way. Maybe one last critique. Underwater cities, after they found that everyone was doing the same thing the first round, in their expansion, they started off with cards where everyone gets something else before the first round. In fact, they skipped the first round entirely. I wouldn't skip around here, obviously, but I would say maybe just like there are setup cards in the game for where you're going to put your person and your castle, there could be some cards that make everyone get, maybe you start with 2 healed people and an extra, wood. You start with 3 extra stone. You start where you're 2 spaces away. You start with a specific technology that it's like the game starts in the first round with everyone kind of being able to do more things. Everyone starts so minimally. It kind of was a little bit, what's the word? Scripted. The first round to me was scripted. But then as the game goes on, then we're all doing different things and based on our technologies. And that's the fun part, really, where you're doing things completely differently and trying to accomplish these things differently. So overall, I'm giving the game an 8. I'm hoping to see even more from these designers and from this company. And I hope this game gets the real fandom that I think it deserves. Then as I was putting the game away, I realized I didn't play every part of it. There's this little box of cards that are events. They kind of remind me of those events in Scythe where you get options, like 3 different options to do something in the game. So I'm looking forward to getting it back on the table. I wish there was a pathway to upgrade your buildings in the game. There are these. You can build your simple buildings to produce goods, which have the lowest cost in wood and stone. And there's these better buildings, but every piece of wood, every stone is very costly in the game, so it's not nothing. And I noticed that on the board, on the player board, there seems to be, for each segment where the buildings are, it's like two simple buildings, and then one of the better buildings. And I wondered if at some point in the development of the game there wasn't some upgrade idea where you could replace a simple building with a better building somehow later on, like the differentiation in costs between the better building and the building that it comes from. I think it would give a little bit more weight to the direction from which you're going to be making your initial buildings. Oh my goodness.